All right, so with UFC 277 around the corner, how about this? Randy and Johnson. Wow, great start. Randy and Jason Sklar have a new show on UFC Fight Pass that might resemble something you may have seen before. So with that, let's take a look.
Fight, fight! We're coming to you from 3 floors below the octagon with a show that's going to take a new look at some of the most insane moments in UFC history. This is probably going to ramp up slowly over time. And oh my God! This guy looks like if the local news had a magician on staff. Butterbean answering the age-old question, what if a thumb was a person? Yoga the Gathering? No, they're yoga trading cards. Trade you my mint condition Bikram rookie for your hot yoga future stars. Somebody! Most fun human centipede ever.
Are these guys twins?
No, they just dress like them. Weird, lame, right?
Come on. Yeah, enjoy, guys.
At UF Cuts, get ready to make a complete transformation.
I asked for the Cheeto Vera, and I love it.
Somebody call tech support?
No.
And you can take that to the bank.
It's the Nosebleeds. Submit to the comedy.
Yeah, submit to the comedy. We will hear because Randy and Jason are nice enough to give us a couple of minutes today, talk about the show and a little college football. Guys, we appreciate the time, man. Got to open up with this. I would assume you're very excited for this. How did this come together? Because when you go back and watch some of those cheap seats shows, especially the spelling bee ones, by the way, some of my favorites, they were absolutely tremendous.
Thanks, man. Well, it's the show. We've done a lot of shows in our. First of all, thank you for having us on this show. We're so happy to be here. And we've done a lot of shows since we did Cheap Seats. We were making episodes in the early 2000s, and they sort of ran them till about 2010. But through our Twitter feed and our social media, that's the show that everyone came back to. When are you making more? When are you making more? And then this opportunity came up. Crawley Sullivan, who was our executive in charge of Cheap Seats over at ESPN Classic, he moved over to the UFC a few years ago, and then he called us up this past summer, and said,
he was like, would you guys be interested in? And we were like, yes,
we'll do it, absolutely. I mean, he was that type of an executive. He's so great with the creative aspect of it and allowing us to run and do.
He's like, I think Cheap Seats could work with UFC because UFC is at a point now where it's so big that they can have a sense of humor about themselves. They can dig back into the archives. Our first episode, which drops tomorrow
on UFC's YouTube page. So it's free for everyone. You can see what the episode is. First of all, every episode is under 20 minutes, which is awesome. They're fast. They're tight. And
tomorrow's UFC 1. We go into UFC 1, back when there were no weight classes, back when you had a sumo wrestler get his tooth kicked out by a Savate dude. Like back at the early days when UFC was still trying to figure it out, when Jim Brown was the announcer for some reason.
We're like, Jim Brown, you've never fought MMA and you're retired from football. What's your opinion here?
Our joke was, how'd they get Jim Brown? What was O.J. Simpson booked?
Well, he was in the process of being booked. It was the mid-90s. Anyway, you get it. The point is, lots of comedy, jokes, and we just realized it totally works. We know where the UFC is. UFC 277 is tomorrow night. It's going to be an incredible card. What they do now is just unbelievable. So
they make the fights that boxing won't make. They make the fights you want to see. And so for us to jump into that jet stream and do what we do and have them let us do what we do, we're so excited.
So psyched.
So I would ask first, is the premise here, is there anybody like Ron Parker who was knocked out of commission? Was there somebody else who was supposed to do this, but you guys got the gig?
See, this is why I love you, man. That's a deep cut. Ron Parker was played by the great Michael Showalter, who, by the way, has gone on to direct like incredible things like Oscar movies and whatnot. And so the Ron Parker situation, there is not. I mean, we're just guys who this whole thing takes place 3 floors fictitiously below the octagon, and it's just anything can happen. And we have great cameos throughout the whole, as you saw in there. Andy Richter plays tech support. Conan's show went down, and he's now UFC tech support. So he comes down and has a great runner throughout.
John Hamm plays a personal injury lawyer who's trying to rep fighters. Have you ever been rear naked choked while on the job? You could be entitled to damages.
Great. So fun.
I love it. Well, and one of the things that I would be terrified to do is these are all extreme athletes who could, I think, kill us with a single blow, would be to make fun of them. So I would say, I would assume that some of the guys that you were not going after, but always in a fun way, are not going to be in the same room, because I feel like that would be a terrifying thing to undergo.
No. Well, we picked someone like Butterbean because even though we're getting older, I think we can outrun him.
We could probably
outrun
the Bean. And by the way, all these guys are awesome. I mean, they're amazing. So there is a healthy amount of love, and we've learned this from doing the roast battle on Comedy Central. You only roast the people that you love, the people that you respect, and the people who you believe can take it. And it's so fun. I mean, again, people have been clamoring for us to bring back this show, Cheap Seats, in some form or another. So the Nosebleeds is it's the perfect evolution of the show. We've gotten better in the last 15 years with our comedy, how we do it, how we figured out how this show works, and it's been a great collaborative effort. Our executive producer, Dave Nickel and Ollie Stokes, they're incredible. Dave worked on the Kevin Hart, Snoop Dogg Olympic stuff most recently. He comes from a comedy background of SNL and Craig Ferguson and Craig Kilborn. So there's a late night feel to this whole thing. And again,
it's like a backdoor variety show.
Exactly.
And for UFC, this is their first foray. It's a big swing for them to do a full-on comedy. And it's just exciting. I think it could be a cool new direction for these guys. Yeah.
So obviously one of your latest endeavors, you guys also do a lot of stuff. View from the Cheap Seats, the podcast, which you guys still do as well. I was told big college football guys. So I want to get your thoughts before we get you out of here. We have a big push here where we have our college football betting guide that's out right now. And when you look at the consensus of the top of college football, doesn't seem like there's much competition for Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia when it comes to the masses. You guys agree with something like that?
And well, you just look at how they've been recruiting. I mean, go through the last 4 recruiting classes, and you say to yourself, "It's who?"
Imagine if the NFL, let's just say the Rams and the Raiders, just pick another team, and let's say Cincinnati. If between those 3 teams, they got the first 40 picks,
right?
That's essentially what it is. And so, until you figure out a way to make that more egalitarian, you're good. And NIL was supposed to do that, so you might see in a couple of years,
you'll just see a team like Texas A&M sneak in and maybe have some.
Or Miami might get good because they're offering so much money for players to come. So I mean, look, we're Michigan guys. We went to Michigan, huge Michigan fans. The fact that they cracked into the college football playoff last year was amazing. I actually think that's great for football. You don't want to see the same teams every single year.
I think the top 3 and then the distance between the top 3 and the next teams, which I would put Michigan, maybe Clemson,
Notre Dame.
We'll see if UFC. We'll see if UFC gets there quickly.
USC.
Yeah, USC. I think that's the question is, can they close that gap between 1, 2, and 3 and the next 7 or 8 teams?
What's really interesting is the conference realignment, and what you're going to see is just a northern west conference and the southeastern conference. That's essentially that's where we're heading, to 20-team conferences. And I mean, it's kind of crazy, but it's interesting how the landscape has changed so much. I think the ability to transfer without any repercussions, and you can start right away. You don't have to sit out a year. Plus, NIL has changed college sports forever in such a huge way. It's the biggest change we've ever seen.
Well, you guys are Michigan guys, and we don't have enough time to dive into the fact that Harbaugh has offered to raise people's children and wants to put kids on the Big Ten payroll. But before we get you guys out of here, real quick again, let everybody know in the last 30 seconds what you guys got going on UFC and what we're going to see on YouTube tomorrow.
They're going to see our new show. It's called The Nosebleeds. It's basically like a reboot of Cheap Seats on UFC's Fight, where it's available on UFC Fight Pass. Tomorrow, the first episode will be for free on UFC's YouTube page, their official YouTube page. So check it out. Tell your friends. Leave a nice comment. And there's more stuff to come. Thank you guys for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Good to talk to you. I've been a fan for a while, so it's cool to chop it up with you for a little bit. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Got it. Again, check that out. UFC 277 around the corner. Sklar Brothers got something new on UFC Fight Pass. It's going to be great. The Nosebleeds. Make sure you check that out. And make sure you stick around because Vinny Maiulo is coming up next.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.